Oh, always a great moment, the start of a webinar, the smell of the crowd, the thrill of the grease paint. Um, the language has been changed to English, you'll be pleased to know. What a treat. If other people don't get that message, that makes no sense to them, does it? I'll have to drop that from my set if that's the case. Um, right. Welcome, everyone. I'm Paul Chandler, the service owner for Digital Traffic Orders. Uh, as ever, we have a packed agenda for you today for this, the sixth webinar on the D-TRO service. The content remains as good as ever, I can assure you. Let's introduce some of our legendary cast of characters. First of all, we have a man who's no stranger to you. He's our product owner, John Cooper. How's it going, and what is new on D-TRO from the DFT?
Hi everyone, good to be back, and I'm going to run through a quick update of the news from the DFT. If we could go to the update slide, please. Okay, so as you know, we've been running in private beta, and that was launched on the 15th of October. Still in a planned mode of going into public beta in January next year. This is obviously subject to a few controls that we have to go through, not least spend control, our favorite type of control. And we also have to pass a GDS assessment on the service. We are hoping that we will be having that around Christmas time, hopefully before Christmas. We've also been running in a stable state in a version for some time now. That is version 3.2.4. And as we announced last week, I believe, we are going up a second level version number to 3.30. And that will be on next Thursday. There's various things on GitHub about what that version is going to include. And we are running a technical webinar next Wednesday, immediately before that go live date. So please do come along to that. We'll talk about that, and we'll get the information about that one. But you should have received an email from me earlier in the week announcing that one. So please do go ahead and sign up for that one and find out what's in the version and read the documentation that's going to be coming out very soon, as well as the GitHub issue around that. So this is our user guide, interface control documents for consumers and publishers. We're also working on the background on some more example files, because we know this has been very helpful for our publishers to be able to see examples of what can and can't be published. GitHub has been working very well. Just in the last month, since the last of these main webinars, we've had lots of issues. They attract questions and comments, and from we try and provide an answer to them, and other users comment on the issue raised by another user. So it all works very well, and it's all in public. So we'll get that link in the chat to remind you of where that is. Also, we'll link up the TTF website, where we have lots of other information. I will just mention the secondary legislation. You'll notice that hasn't come out yet. We are hoping that it will come out soon. And I know we've been saying by the end of 2024. As with all these things, though, there is a chance that date could slip, and it could now be early 2025. Hopefully January 2025, rather than anything later in early 2025. That will contain the clarity on what's in and what's out in terms of the scope of D-TRO, as we've been saying, and also the dates, which I know everyone's dying to know about when the new orders will be need to be sent into the system. So I've called out the TTF website. I mentioned that all our webinars, as you know, are recorded. We put them on the YouTube playlist. That links on the TTF, and there's normally about a week lag, I'd say, between it happening and us getting everything mobilized and it's up. We try to keep it as ticking over as quickly as possible, though. Do keep checking, and probably subscribing to the playlist is a good idea. Then you could be told when the new videos have come, and you don't even really need to hear from us when we've done them. Finally, just like to mention that alongside all the technical build development work, we do, as you know, conduct quite a lot of user research. That's been very important as we approach our assessment and pulling it all together. We'd like to thank everybody that's participated in that. It's very helpful for us to hear from you as the users, what you think of the service, how we've worked with you, how it works technically, and all those other things. It is all being very valuable and synthesized, and will be discussed at length when we do that long-awaited assessment. So that's the update from the DFT. We are going to go back to Paul, but you might be hearing from me again quite shortly.
Did you mean sorry, we've got a new person working the slides, and they're still getting into it, guys. Don't worry. Did you mean subscribe to the playlist, John, or did you mean subscribe to the channel?
Yeah,
I'm not a YouTube expert.
I'm not certain actually if you can subscribe just to the D-TRO playlist, but if you look, when you go to the playlist, you'll see it's part of the Street Manager channel. You might have to just subscribe to the Street Manager channel.
I mean,
that might
would that be so bad?
No, would that be so bad? But you might, if you don't want to see all that Street Manager stuff and you just want the D-TRO, you might have to set some kind of filter on your notifications. But we can confirm what would happen.
I'm trying to hit 100,000 views at some point. That's the mark I'm going for. So yeah, all traffic is welcome. Talking of things that are welcome. Oh, number one, I never said feel free to go into the chat and post your questions. Do feel free to check that out. But more importantly, it's great to get fresh voices into these webinars. And I'd like to introduce you now to a man who is, well, it's just John Cooper again, to be honest. I don't know where I'm going with this. John Cooper, take it away.
Right. Okay. Next slide, please. I'm going to update you now on what's been going on with the private beta in terms of numbers. We do, as you know, have a integration environment, which is like our test or sandbox environment, and we get everyone on in there first. And then when they have graduated from being able to interact with integration, they are promoted into the prod or the production environment. We've got 12 orgs in integration, with some orgs having more than one individual. 7 of the publishers have actually published more than 10 test D-TROs into the system. That might be ones they've created themselves, or it might be them taking our samples and posting them in. We don't really mind in integration. There has been some interesting activity in large volumes in covering quite large areas, notably in Manchester, where lots of orders have been posted. So the number of test D-TROs in integration is well into the thousands. And also people have been filling in very usefully questionnaires and providing feedback on their experience of integrating with the integration environment, as it were. So this sets us in good stead for being able eventually in our production environment, if you could just go to the next slide, So we have fewer organizations in prod, but this is because it takes some time to get mobilized and to be able to do everything technically. This is quite new to quite a lot of people, and we only want real TROs posted into the prod environment. So all the testing goes on in the integration, and there are these 5 organizations, 2 digital solution providers linked to 9 traffic regulation authorities, and there is a grand total of 5 D-TROs. You might say, well, there was a grand total of 5 D-TROs quite a while ago. However, we can now say with some quite good authority, we are expecting the volume to increase on prod in the next week, if not even in the next days, because finally the digital solution providers and others are mobilizing, getting their solutions ready and being able to send in a real live way orders that are being made from right now going onwards. We're also accepting orders that are not necessarily just being made, but are recent ones in private beta. And given that we want eventually the service to contain all the traffic regulation orders, we are accepting doesn't need to be something that is just made live, and we will take one that's been made before. That we are after as great a spread as possible, both in terms of the types of orders, so permanent to temporary, types of TRAs, so counties, unitaries, metropolitans, London, everyone, and the different types of order, so say speed limits, parking controls, other regulatory measures on the road, be it for moving traffic or for stationary traffic. So sorry that the absolute total number of orders published to the prod is still low, but we are confident that it's going to kick up very soon. The next slide, please. This is just a visualization of that Manchester area that I mentioned. KL Systems, our friend George, he provided this to us. It's just a Google map, really, showing a location of each of the orders that have been added to the system. We are hoping to go to the next level with the visualization in coming weeks and show the actual alignments of the measures on street that are happening with the same types of collections of orders in all in the one and same area. You can see how it quite quickly becomes a powerful tool in terms of showing what's really goes on the street. So thanks for that. It's great to see that the data has been used. The next slide, please. I'm going to hand back to Paul because we're going to move on to the next section. Thanks, everyone.
Smoothly done, John Cooper. Now, there's a question from Simon. How do we view the test site? So don't go off camera just yet, John Cooper. How does someone get into that integration environment, sir?
The best bet is that we'll drop us a line, or we'll reply in the chat later with the full instructions. There is some onboarding to go through, like there's a site you can go to that sets it all up. You start in integration, and then we can move you on to prod. If you're keen to, if you want to see it as a publisher or go in as a consumer, we can still take in late entrants for joining the private beta. This information is not actually published on the face of the TCF website or anywhere. We've dealt with it more on an individual basis. There's a short step of procedures to go through in order to get you set up, but we can let you have the information.
Thank you, John. Very good. Yeah, come in, get into integration environment, and with some hard work, you might one day get promoted to the production environment. Talking of hard work, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to introduce the man himself. It's John Harrod Booth. How are you, John?
Thank you, Paul. I'm having great fun trying to coordinate. I do assume that I can be seen because on my screen I can't see myself, which is a bit disturbing. But
I've been there. Yeah, I can see you.
okay, that's great. Yeah, never run a webinar when the configuration starts completely different to how every other time has ever run before. But there we go. So I get to talk to you about the data specification. Necessarily, I'm going to keep this quite high level, but as John said, we have a planned release of what we are calling version 3.3, and that will go live in the system on the 28th of November. We are working hard on the documentation. We're doing the quality control checks at the moment, so I use the phrase soon. It could have possibly been today. It might be tomorrow, but my DFT colleagues say don't hang yourself out to dry. So it'll be documentation will be available as soon as we are ready to release the full set. Where that has come from and the nature of the changes is that obviously we've had 3.2.4 out for about a month now, and comments are coming in through GitHub and through emails. We're obviously triaging those as they come in, and in some cases they're requests for information, but where they're identifying issues, we are tackling all of those and we're addressing them in a manner that we sensibly can. When we released 3.2.4, I made a statement that said we've done this in such a way that it doesn't affect any of the software code of the system for 3.2.4. Critical issues that we've addressed since then, we are rolling into 3.3, and therefore it's a more substantial change to the system. It has some consequential knock-on in terms of the data specification, so we've tried to make sure that we are being very much consistent between the various artifacts that we produce. And there were some challenges previously. We've worked hard to try and ensure that's not the case, but it does mean that there are some changes to how relationships in the model work and these sorts of things. As part of those user comments, we also get requests coming in from users and totally welcome those. So Pauline at TFL said, how am I supposed to deal with red roots, and asked for some clarification around regulation types. They didn't obviously fit with what we had there before, so we've introduced those. And that's just an illustration. So in previous webinars, I've spoken about the fact that we have a spreadsheet with all of the definitions and terms we have in the data model sat there and would welcome input onto those to say, what do you think's missing? What do you think should be done differently? And that still remains the case. So that sort of input is very useful. Everything we receive goes into a backlog. Obviously, we're triaging that. So when we time a release, we're obviously dealing with the resources it can take and looking at the issues we can deal with for the next release. So there is a backlog of other things that we are addressing. Indeed, we've been scheduling our way through those even today. But some of the things that we're introducing into 3.3 hopefully will address some of the concerns that have been raised previously. We are also addressing needs that we see people have raised and are not necessarily a bug fix. So, for example, we've introduced a way to deal with diversion routes. It was a fair call coming from users that said, how do we do this? TTROs have diversion routes. It's not obvious how the model deals with these. So we have an extension that deals with diversion routes. I'm not going to go through in the detail, but that will obviously be documented and examples will come out, samples will come out shortly. We will go through this in more detail. We've got a technical webinar on the 27th, and we'll go through that in more detail. But I think for the moment, that's probably all I was going to say. Paul.
Thank you, John. That seems pretty comprehensive to me, sir. Thank you very much, as always. Well, crumbs. Um, Maybe, guys, we've driven you into not submission, but we started to run out of the well of questions that used to get asked, and we've put so much effort into answering those frequently aid cues. Aid frequently, yeah, aid as in Q8. Anyway, that we don't have too many anymore. Do feel free to put any questions you have into the chat. Here's one, for instance. Which DSP has the ability to onboard a TTO and TTRO without having two different systems? Hmm. Hmm. Well, I can't really answer that question on a webinar. I don't want to sort of name names and favour one over the other. But you are generally correct, Simon Edwards, that most of the ones that I can think of, and in all seriousness, that do it well, it's probably one or the other. People seem to be focusing on, we're going to do temp TROs in our organisation, or we're going to do temp TROs with this product and perm TROs with that product. So yeah, I must admit I can't think of anyone who's got people up and running as customers that for each one in the same product. Yeah, the thing I would underline, I think, is that people that have asset management systems today, I would suggest that you go and speak to those providing the asset management system and seeing what they're doing in this area, because I know of multiple asset management system providers that are looking either very seriously or having a proper think about it, or in the process of building it and moving forward with it, that you could use, that you might already have as software within your organization if you're a traffic authority. I took that question, Gary, to be about temporary and permanent orders, as in I want to use one product for to raise my permanent and temporary orders rather than different types of temporary orders. Simon Morgan there adding in, yeah, two different products there for sure, but so we'll see how that goes in the future. Also, I've spoken to people that do perm orders at the moment that are looking at the temporary market and, thinking that maybe they might want to do temp orders as well within the same product. So, yeah, sort of watch this space, basically, I would say. Well, not this space because the DFT can't talk about it, but watch the space. Yes, it would be good to open the market to temp orders, but I think that is what's happening a little bit with these asset management slash streetworks software providers looking to come into this market, and people that currently do perm TROs may be looking at doing temporary TROs. So yeah, I do see some cause for optimism there, Nicola. Every time I pause now, a new question comes in, which is fun, but is the geospatial right? Okay. Get ready, John Harrod Booth. Is the geospatial encoding format still to be finalised? Has there been any further discussion with the Geospatial Commission regarding the current non-GIS standard file format being required? Thank you for that, Jack. John Harrod Booth, you haven't come onto camera yet. Save me.
We are still looking at it, so it's not finalised. There are activities underway. we've, to be honest, it hasn't been primary focus in the last week or so because we've been focusing on 3.3.0 release, but there are measures in hand, and we're still looking at it. So I guess we should be able to come out in the fairly near future and give some further news on that. But I'll hold my powder for the moment.
I think it's just worth saying that we've spoken to the Geospatial Commission. Come in here at any point that I go wrong, John Harrod Booth. We have spoken to the Geospatial Commission, and they haven't had any concerns with the file format or anything like that. You know, they're not sort of here to be, you know, it didn't raise any eyebrows, anything that we're doing.
No, agreed.
Thank you. Here's a question. We're saying, John Cooper, that we have 3,000 records in integration. George, our friend with the visualization, is seeing 18,030. Can you explain that discrepancy at all?
I think what might have got garbled is the difference between actual orders and then successful transactions with the test API. That might have got lost in translation by the information being passed over. That number of 1,830 does sound like the number I was seeing a few weeks ago. We're keeping tabs on it. There was a flurry where there were thousands of transactions going on every day, if not some in the region of every hour at some points. The total number of orders is slightly misleading from what we've put on our slide, I believe. Still quite a good large number, though.
Thank you very much, John Cooper. What's 1,070 between friends? Okay. This might be for you as well, John. As a beta authority, how do I know whether our TROs are published correctly? I presume, can I just answer that, like maybe with a bit of a Street Manager hat on? Like, I presume that, like, in Street Manager, you press save in your API or send or whatever, and you know you get a response saying.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think the difference. I think the difference here is about whether or not you are the actual publisher. If you're the actual publisher of your TRAs, then you should get a success code if they've been successfully published, and then you should also be able to search for them or view the events log of what's happened. I've been experimenting looking at events log just yesterday per individual TRA, and you can see all the activity that's occurred for a single TRA. If you are a TRA, but your orders have been published for you by a DSP, and you want to know whether or not they've gone in, and you don't have access to the API, then until there is access for you to read on the API, or your DSP tells you that the publication has been successful, then yeah, because it is an API first service only, there isn't like a live status report of what has been successfully published and what hasn't. When data consumers start ingesting and publishing the full prod data on their systems, then that will be where you'd be able to go readily to see where things have been published correctly or not. But you could also technically become a consumer in your own right and then set up a system to read what's been published for you or with your cooperation.
Thanks, John. I think that fire alarm test is over now, pretty much. I think the Automated Vehicles Act is interested in the vehicle picking up the diversion. Currently, only roadworks.org does that. I think the point is that we're looking to add diversion routes into the data model. Is that correct, anyone?
Yeah, I might just say something briefly and then hand to John for the technical side. But I believe that the upgrade for diversion routes is in version 3.3.0 as per the GitHub issue announcement.
Yep. Don't know what else you want me to say, Paul. So.
No, great.
Confirmed.
We have just received a temporary traffic order from National Highways saying the A12 will be closed every night from the 2nd of Jan for 18 months. I mean, that would seem inconvenient to me as a sometimes user of the A12. Do you know what? I've got a WhatsApp group with former Westminster colleagues, and I was literally messaging them this morning going, everyone seems to write their traffic orders out for 18 months. I don't know why. In Westminster, we just wrote it for a week with a backup week, and that was it, So can we just talk? I think what Tim's getting at there is this whole issue of how do we cope with, we can't send information to Google that talks about, oh, this road is closed every night for 18 months. As soon as someone drives up the A12 and sees it is not closed and they do not get diverted, they're going to lose faith in the quality of the information. So yeah, I'm interested in that as well, Tim. If you think about Street Manager's got the we literally had this question today actually and published a response on it today in the GitHub, I think it is, where we do the responses. But if you think about Street Manager, we've got the current traffic management field now. So perhaps we can take that current traffic management field as well as the start and stop that we get for works. And if you combine all this information together, you start to have some pretty good data for closures that require a permit. Now, there's obviously other closures for building sites and such like, and Section 50s and 278s and all sorts of stuff that don't require a permit. And how we'd cope with them, I don't quite know. But yeah, it's something that does come up pretty regularly on the project, and we do have some thoughts on it. I think the consultation, not to spoil it, will probably ask for people's input on this. It's something we're looking to, certainly the project wants feedback on it. Anything you want to add there, gents?
I might just say something briefly and then ask John. But yeah, we have got your email, Tim, where you've kindly alerted to us the presence of these road closures, and John has been looking at it, I believe, as long as he's been sent it already. We will get back to you. We do have confidence, though, that D-TRO, presuming these closures are covered by some form of temporary order, that D-TRO can handle that type of order where it's a persistent but fairly regular overnight closure. John, did you get the email yet?
I did get the email. I have not looked at the content yet, but
okay.
It's pretty close to the top of my head.
Perhaps a good moment to mention, Paul, our excellent triaging process, where we do get all these GitHub issues raised and people emailing us through D-TRO at dft.gov.uk or D-TRO-CSO at dft.gov.uk if it relates to accounts and access to the actual system and that. We run quite extensive triaging sessions every day now to make sure that we're on top of responding in a sort of customer service. Well, the central service operator is what we call ourselves, and we are attempting to provide this service and make sure that we get back in a reasonable amount of time. Got quite a lot of activity every day now, as you might imagine. We are at nearly we're at 44 issues, I think, on GitHub, and that's double what it was just a month ago.
Is there any word yet on the potential for burdens funding as a result of D-TRO publishing requirements placed upon TRAs, particularly if GIS conversion of perm and experimental traffic orders is required? So I'd take pains to divide that into two things. So you've got the requirement to publish new orders, and then the requirement to do your historic stuff. So let's just put the historic stuff to one side if we can, because that's a little ways away, and then think about the need to get software. So Sally Kendall is dealing with that. We will get her to a webinar at some point once the consultation is out for sure. I don't think there's any new news to tell anyone. It is a conversation we need to have with the people that run the new burdens process. You can argue it either way and say, oh, already 100 organizations have got the data they need and are already doing this because they feel it's a benefit. And, I don't know what the outcome of that will be. But yeah, we are aware of it. And, we've had a conversation. Not sure if I should say this, but we have done some sort of budget planning for 25, 26 that includes the potential for some of that stuff. I've probably said too much there, John Cooper. Do you want to add anything?
I don't think I should. No, but yeah, this question has come up all the way right back to the start of the project, obviously, and it will obviously continue to come out until there is the clarity. I think what we have to say, I believe, Paul, is that only at the point when the consultation is closed can the funding matter be really properly considered.
Yes. Only
that's the key point.
I need to do this for a clean edit when we edit this, John Cooper. Only when the consultation is closed can the new burdens issue be considered. Right, we'll edit that. We'll edit that in. Right, okay. I was surprised by an A12 closure last night, which Google was unaware of. Wouldn't get that in Essex, Tim, I'm quite sure. Well, it was in Essex, but you know what I mean. Essex wouldn't do that. You should only process the TTRO for the predicted duration of the works. Yes, Peter, I agree. Max duration of 18 months. However, closure anticipated from X date to Y date. I mean, yeah. I mean, if that's look. The D-TRO project is not here to tell you how to write your traffic orders, so I won't say anything more than that. The 18 months would be for remedials generally and is valid considering the cost. I mean, yeah, that's a whole conversation. That's a whole conversation. Oh, I've started a whole thing here. That's not a D-TRO thing. Yes, indeed, Tim, that's the spirit. The issue with TTRO closures is the work can take longer. Yeah. I regret starting that whole thing, to be honest. Okay. Oh, thank you, George. Lovely stuff. George has posted a link to the D-TROs in the integration environment. That's cracking. A little snapshot. Okay. I think apart from great work by me starting an argument about how to write temporary traffic orders, we have pretty much exhausted the questions. We do have on the agenda a little section that I like to call further information. So without further ado, let's hear from, we're missing Gareth here, guys. The doctor is not in the house. John Cooper, back over to you again.
Doctor's not in the TARDIS either. One for you, old school. Okay, so we've mentioned this already on our engagement program. We have been through barely a month passing in recent times where there hasn't been some event that we've been at or other. We do still just have webinars coming up though, really. The technical webinar that I mentioned is on the 27th. I did put the link to it in the chat. Feel free to sign up. Beware, it will contain technical chat and be no doubt full of lots of difficult questions for JHP. There is now, I believe, a final summary about where to go for all your essential D-TRO information on the final slide. Okay, all these links, I believe, are now in the chat. The email there I mentioned, D-TRO@DFT. That's our general email. If you can only remember one email about D-TRO, that's the one to remember. The CSO one with D-TRO-CSO is intended for dealing with account inquiries and why doesn't the onboarding work and other such questions. And we have got an unofficial sort of division between them. Don't get too stressed about that though. We've got our website that has all the announcements, and you can sign up to the mailing list there. And then the GitHub, which I also put the link to, is where all our technical docs, the data specification, including the model, the schema, and the example files, plus the allied interface control documents that tell you how to get on to the various API endpoints, and the technical user guide and some other things. And remember, those are going to be updated to coincide with the imminent 3.3.0 release. Finally, I did put the link to the YouTube playlist. I haven't verified where the subscription feature on that takes you, but I think you can just subscribe to the channel as a whole and then see what it tells you about which video has been added. And you may also be interested to see the Street Manager stuff that we are piggybacking on top of. I think that's about it really from us from the information side. We will let you know if anything else comes up, sending out emails and putting stuff on GitHub and issues that we generate ourselves, and we update the README, and we occasionally update the website with when there's major changes. But there you go.
We had over 150 people on a Street Manager webinar this week, just looking at Excel spreadsheets, how to do pivot tables, and Power BI, and that's already up on the channel. So, I mean, come for the D-TRO stuff, stay for the Street Manager pivot table information. Right, we've got a couple of late-breaking questions, JC. Right. Most importantly, Peter says, if someone needs to go back to undertake remedials, then this would require a new D-TRO, in his opinion. I think I'm Team Peter on that, but this one can run in future webinars. Right, now, also, we had Christopher Lang, who, that rings a bell, John. Was he from Stockport?
I believe, yeah, Chris from Stockport. And they've been using GIS to create digital orders.
Yeah.
What's his question?
So, well, Stockport, if you remember, were kind of one of our key people trying to do it down the GIS path. And he's talking about something called an FME application from Safe Software, which I must admit I'm not familiar with, but to publish TROs to the API, and he's talking about how they manage their TTOs using PostGIS, I hope I'm saying that right, and QGIS, and intend to continue with this setup, and then having this FME publishing TROs to the API. So they're really, guys, Stockport are kind of at the bleeding edge of this publishing TROs without a software provider, essentially, sort of doing it in-house. So, John, I don't know if you just want to talk for a second about our discussions with Stockport and the group that we're trying to form.
Yes, good. That's a good point. Stockport are one of several TRAs who identify as being able or have a current GIS capability using one of several different types of GIS systems. We have convened a discussion group with them. It's growing all the time, subject to the horrible red tape we have to go through on our side to onboard external organizations to Teams. But bear with me. I'm getting you all onboarded, and you'll be able to share ideas about what's going on, what works, what doesn't, which packages you're using. And I've also mentioned in there today about we know that RTA, one of the DSPs, they use have a system called Order Pro, and that uses ArcGIS. So they're also keen to swap ideas, and we've asked you in there if you would be willing to share your thoughts with RTA, and if you are, we can put you in touch.
I saw that thumbs down, Nicola Burns. Don't try and row back on it. Have the courage of your convictions.
Just one more thing. If you want to join the GIS group, we haven't been in touch with you, but you believe that you're using a GIS that could possibly lead to being able to publish D-TROs, then do just drop us a line. We'll go through that horrible process with you as well and try and get you onboarded to the Teams channel.
Yeah, there's a strict one emoji per comment rule in Teams, sadly. I've learnt that the hard way myself. Okay, well, hasn't that been a fun webinar? Who thought that at 20 past 3, when there was barely any questions, that we'd still be here now? Well done, everyone. Look after yourself. Stay frosty. Get in touch with the Stockport guys. Oh, hang on. 1 second. PPY Ways. Oh, I think that. Oh, Happy Waves Traffic Suit supports permanent and experimental orders. Oh, here we go. Samuel, early next year we will introduce. Oh, I've been tricked into reading out a company promo. Right, okay. Well done, everyone. Take care of yourselves. Stay frosty, and see you at the next webinar.